On an ordinary autumn afternoon, 3 identical boys vanished beneath the towering branches of a withering ash tree. Moments earlier, laughter had spilled out over the front yard of 42 Marrow Road. Minutes later, the street hummed with silence. No tire tracks on the gravel, no gate left ajar, not a single shoe print marking the muddy verge. After that day, the Johnson house was left to languish. Its windows kept their secrets behind dust and shadow. Neighbors moved away. The place was sidestepped, remembered only as that house at the end of Marrow Road. For nearly 3 decades, no voices, no clues, just memories fossilized behind crumbling brickwork. That is, until last Sunday, when the porch lights flickered on by themselves and children's giggles echoed from the abandoned loft. Voices no one had heard in Willowfield since 1993. Before we unravel the secrets of Marrow Road, be sure to subscribe or bookmark this story. What's uncovered inside may alter everything you thought you understood about small towns. The bitter September sun cast honeyed stripes over the fractured pavement outside 42 Marrow Road. The day's heat seemed to ripple, bending the air until reality itself shimmered, making the street feel both forgotten and watchful. The house, last at the end of the street, sat hunched in disrepair. Locked shutters, peeling paint, the unmistakable slump of a place long left unspoken to. Lucas Fisher wiped his brow with his sleeve, wedged a crowbar into the crumbling joint of the garage wall, and listened to the brittle wood groan under pressure. His partner, Zara, was sifting through boxes in the driveway, arranging the remains of someone else's life. "Why does the framework look so odd here?" Lucas mused, peering behind a sheet of warped plywood. "It's like someone boxed off half this garage on purpose, but left it unfinished." Zara straightened, brushing spiderwebs from an old basket. "You think we're about to become rich renovators? Or rescue a family of feral cats?" Lucas managed a nervous grin. "Honestly, I'd settle for an empty wall." The crowbar broke through with a sharp pop, sending dust swirling in the sunlight. Behind the panel, a hollow gap waited. Wedged within, half swallowed by the wall's skeleton, sat a battered wooden chest not 3 feet wide. Age had stolen the grain's color, and rust gnawed at the latches. Across the faded top, in the smeared strokes of a long-forgotten marker, a child's name. Jamie. Zara's breath stilled. "Did you see this?" Lucas knelt, brushing at cobwebs that shriveled away at his touch. "Something about this feels wrong." The chest wasn't locked, only nailed shut. With trembling hands, Lucas prized open the lid. Inside, time clung to the objects like mold. A miniature police car without wheels, a jumble of marbles, a laminated library card that read, "Oliver Carter," a notebook filled with backwards letters and stickmen, and, at the bottom, a faded instant photo. Zara lifted it gently. Oh my God. 3 identical boys, arms looped around one another in matching green coats, smiled at the camera. Behind them was this house, the crooked railing, the wide steps, the same splintered tiles. She turned the photo. No date, no names. Lucas rose slowly, rubbing the grit from his hands. Triplets? They exchanged a look, a chill passing between them more real than the cold outside. Back indoors, Zara searched Marrow Road triplets missing on her phone. It didn't take long. Her lips parted in shock as she scrolled through an old news archive. 1994. Jamie, Oliver, and Max Carter, age 8. Last seen cycling home from Ash Grove School, Barnwell County, Maine. There were photos, the same faces, the same wary smiles, now haunting digital ink. Lucas peered over her shoulder. They disappeared. From here. Zara pointed at the brick house just across the street, its yard choked with ferns and overgrown grass. Their family lived right there. A sharp wind rattled the garage window, scattering dry leaves like brittle memories across the drive. A chill stuck to Lucas's skin, heavier than the dust in the air. "We have to call this in," he said, voice dry. "Of course," Zara replied softly. But something fragile had changed in her face. Shadows gathered under her eyes. She squeezed the photo between her fingers, the three boys grinning eternally, captured in one impossible moment. Police arrived before sunset. A pair of cruisers, a solitary detective in a rumpled suit. They snapped photos, sealed the crate's contents in crisp evidence bags, and asked question after question. The detective, Emery Wade, was brisk, polite, and not inclined toward speculation. "We'll draft a report, reopen the file. After all these years, don't get your hopes up for answers." Lucas nodded, but Zara lingered in the driveway, her gaze fixed on the old brick house. As the evening drained of color, the porch light flickered on across the street. For the first time, she noticed a thin figure sitting in a rocking chair beneath the creaking awning, watching them from the shadows. That night, unable to sleep, Zara lay in bed, scrolling through every archived article about the Carter boys. Three brothers last seen near Marrow Road and Haversham Lane at 4:19 p.m. A neighbor described them pedaling their bikes and laughing. Another insisted they never made it home from school. The case was first ruled an unexplained disappearance, later escalated to possible abduction. Their mother, Ruth Carter, had never moved away. She was still somewhere in Barnwell. "I just want people to remember their faces," she had told the paper in 1995. They did not just vanish. Someone took them. The photo from the chest sat on Zara's nightstand. In it, Jamie held a crooked stick, as if it were a sword. Max's jeans were grass-stained. Oliver sported a gap between his front teeth. They almost looked alive. And now, improbably, their ghosts lingered. Morning arrived gray and reluctant. Zara crossed the street, heart pounding, to the Carter family's old home. She knocked, her knuckles barely making a sound on the splintered frame. The woman who answered was older than the newspaper clippings, her hair shot through with silver, but her eyes clear and direct. "Mrs. Carter?" Zara asked. Ruth Carter nodded, studying her visitor with a grief-worn patience. Zara stumbled through her explanation. Moving in, finding the chest in the garage, the photograph, the names. For a long moment, Ruth said nothing. Then, in a voice no louder than leaves brushing the walk, "You should come in." The living room was small but tidy. On the mantel, 3 frames showed the same boys, round faces, uncertain grins, matching hair. Ruth sank onto the old couch. "May I see it?" Zara held out the Polaroid. Ruth's hands trembled only slightly as she took it. Silence stretched between them, almost unbearable, until Ruth's breath caught. This was the day before. She tapped the boy in the center. Jamie never let go of that stick. Oliver hated posing. Her thumb hovered over Max's smile. "I told them red was their color. Made them easy to spot on dark afternoons." Zara swallowed, voice cracking. The chest was hidden, deliberately. Someone boxed off that garage on purpose. Ruth's stare hardened. Resolve flickered beneath the sorrow. Nothing in that house was ever an accident. The police returned that afternoon, this time led by Detective Wade. They filed reports, photographed the wall, and spoke in low, measured tones about reopening the cold case, but gave no promises. Outside, the wind swept the yard, and the porch light blinked again. That night, unable to sleep, Lucas scrolled property records. The old owner, Mr. Edmund Gray, had died years before. No family, no mention in any investigations back then. But there was something odd. For several months before the disappearance, he'd rented part of the house out to a boarder. Name, Robert Finley. The address was old, but it was something. "We have to find him," Zara whispered across the dark living room. Lucas nodded, dread and adrenaline twined together. The street outside was silent, but the old ash tree creaked. Somewhere, secrets moved just out of reach. By late the next day, Detective Wade tracked down Robert Finley's last known address, a crumbling boarding house on the far edge of town. He was gone, the clerk said, but a forwarding P.O. box existed in a nearby city. Lucas and Zara, restless and unable to wait, visited the property themselves. The landlady, Ms. Mercer, met them at the door, suspicious at first, but softening when she saw their worry. Finley, quiet man, kept to himself, left suddenly one spring, didn't even pick up his deposit, always said he was night shift at the old textile mill. "Did he ever mention the Carter boys?" Lucas asked, careful not to seem accusatory. Miss Mercer frowned, searching her memory. "No, never spoke of children. He liked puzzles, crosswords all day. Kept stacks of old newspapers in his room. Left everything behind except for a suitcase. Room still empty, if you want to look." Upstairs, in Finley's former room, dust patterned the floor in rings. Lucas ran a finger through the grime, then noticed a single sheet pinned to the closet wall, a yellowed crossword puzzle, unsolved except for 3 intersecting answers at the center: Jamie, Oliver, Max. Zara's breath caught. He knew them, or at least he thought about them. They photographed the puzzle in the room, leaving quietly. That evening, Detective Wade called. "That P.O. box you mentioned? Finley's name is tied to bank withdrawals all this month from a branch in Baxter. I'll go, but I'm not optimistic." The next morning brought rain, drumming the old ash tree and filling Marrow Road with cold, fresh air. Zara watched water snake across the driveway from her kitchen window, mind buzzing with questions no one could yet answer. Why hide the chest? Why the deliberate framing in the garage? What was Robert Finley's real connection to the vanished boys? And as thunder rumbled, somewhere across the quiet town, a figure sat in a small rental car, watching the Carter house from a distance. His knuckles were white against the steering wheel, and in his lap was a faded newspaper article clipped from 1994, the one with 3 identical missing faces. Detective Wade's trip to Baxter produced only frustration. The bank security tapes showed a blurred man in a baseball cap making withdrawals, always silent, always alone. Too careful for facial recognition, too generic for anyone to remember. Meanwhile, Zara dug through library archives and old town records. She found blueprints of 42 Marrow Road, including the garage. The odd framing wasn't in the original plans. It had been added roughly 6 months before the Carter boys disappeared, when Finley first moved in. She photographed the old permits and pieced together a timeline. Someone had deliberately created and then sealed a hidden space. Lucas, flipping through the scanned notebook from the chest, spotted something odd. A doodle of the house's backyard, with a strange X marked beneath the ash tree, next to the words, "Don't tell anyone. Only us." That afternoon, while Wade coordinated with Maine state investigators, Lucas and Zara stood in the backyard beneath the ancient tree. Rain had softened the ground. The air smelled of earth and secrets. Lucas knelt and scraped at the soil. A few inches down, his fingers hit metal. A small tin lunchbox, rusted and caked in mud. Inside were 3 objects: a red marble, a toy police badge, a folded note in a childish hand. "If you find this, don't be sad. We're together." Zara read the note aloud, her voice shaking. Lucas closed his eyes, suddenly aware that this, too, was evidence, if not of answers, then at least of love. The siblings, if they were siblings, had left a message, hidden it where only the bravest or the most desperate might look. When they called Detective Wade, his voice was somber but urgent. "You're getting closer, but someone else is watching. We found Finley's car abandoned near the woods at the edge of Marrow Road. He's still in town. Stay safe. And if you see anything, anyone strange, call me first." That night, as the storm raged, a figure stood beneath the ash tree and stared at 42 Marrow Road. Zara, peeking through the curtains, felt a cold stare brush her soul. The case was no longer cold. In the shadows, it was starting to burn. Detective Wade patrolled the neighborhood that night, headlights slicing through ribbons of fog. Every so often, he parked at the corner, engine running, eyes on the houses, especially 42 Marrow Road. Inside, Zara and Lucas sat together, unable to sleep. The Polaroid, the lunchbox, the puzzle. Every clue spun in their minds, forming patterns just out of reach. Near midnight, a low knock startled them. Lucas peered through the peephole. An older woman stood on the porch, umbrella dripping. He opened the door a sliver. "Can I help you?" Her voice was brittle but urgent. "You found their things, didn't you?" It was Ruth Carter. They let her in, making tea, and she sat clutching the photo. She told them stories of her boys, their games, secret codes, whispered plans. She always knew the house across the street hid something, but no one believed her. "For years, I walked past your yard, wondering what was buried here. I hoped someone would look harder than the police did, someone who cared." As the rain hammered the windows, Zara hesitated, then asked, "Do you think Finley took them?" Ruth's eyes hardened. He was weak, not cruel, always lurking. But he didn't act alone. Or not at all. There was someone else on this street. Someone no one wanted to talk about. The boys mentioned. A friend. A man who gave them candies, who taught them how to whistle. He wasn't a neighbor. I never saw his face straight on. Lucas sat forward, heart pounding. "Do you remember his name?" Ruth shook her head. "Never heard it. But sometimes, when the wind was right, I heard him singing near the ash tree, the same tune, over and over." Outside, headlights passed slowly and disappeared. Ruth finished her tea, pressed their hands in hers, and left, pulling her coat tight against the storm. Lucas locked the door. Zara drew the Polaroid close. "The singing," she said. "We need to find out who else heard it." As the house creaked and the storm howled, somewhere in the dark, a voice was humming a broken tune, and for the first time, they wondered if the missing boys had ever truly left Marrow Road at all. By sunrise, the storm had cooled the world and left everything washed fresh. Detective Wade arrived at 42 Marrow Road just as Lucas and Zara finished their second pot of coffee, eyes shadowed but determined. "We have a break," Wade said, gripping a folder thick with new files. Finley used his bank card at a bus depot, but he never boarded. Security footage caught him talking to a man outside, someone who matched a composite from your old neighbor's description. He placed a photo on the table. A tall, thin man, weathered face, eyes hidden under the brim of a hat. "Who is he?" Zara asked, breath held. "His name is Isaac Dunn," Wade replied. "He lived on the next block 30 years ago, drifted, transient, but always around. Never came up in the first investigation. We just found out he'd worked odd jobs at the Carter house and several others on Marrow Road." As the day warmed, they canvassed the neighborhood, speaking to older residents. Some barely remembered Isaac. Others recalled his whistling, always near the ash tree, always when the Carter boys were outside. That afternoon, a phone call from Ruth Carter changed everything. "I remembered something strange," she said quietly. "The week before the boys disappeared, Isaac helped trim the ash tree. He left tools in our shed. Afterward, He'd whistle, the same tune, and stand at the fence, just watching. Wade obtained a search warrant for a nearby abandoned storage unit rented years before by Isaac Dunn. Inside, beneath layers of dust, they found crates of hoarded junk and, near the back, a battered suitcase. Packed inside were children's items, drawings, marbles, and the Carter brothers' missing bike helmets, still with their name stickers intact. Underneath the suitcase lining was a faded envelope. Inside, a confession in Isaac's shaky handwriting. "I never meant to take them," it read. "I wanted to be their friend. They trusted me, followed me into the woods. It was just a game until it wasn't. Jamie fell. The others wouldn't leave him. I hid them, not knowing how to fix what happened. Forgive me." Tears slipped down Ruth's face as Wade read the letter to her. There would be more excavations in the woods, more days of answers that came too late. But for the first time in decades, the mystery was not a void. It was a story, one with an ending. The town gathered quietly to remember Jamie, Oliver, and Max. Lucas, Zara, and Ruth stood at the foot of the old ash tree, sunlight flickering through its thinning branches. 3 small, handmade crosses marked where the boys had once played, where their secrets had been hidden for so long. In silence, they let the past finally rest,